not have to wear those masks. I mean, please take them off. Honestly, it's not doing anything, and we got to stop with this COVID theater. So if you want to wear it, fine, but this is ridiculous. They actually said 2 weeks ago that everyone at the speech had to have an N95 mask. Then they changed it. How did the science change in 2 weeks? It changed. It didn't change. They changed that because they knew it would be a terrible visual to have all these people there suffering in mass, socially distant, while the rest of the country is out living their lives. And so I'm glad that I think it was because of politics. I don't think this was a legitimate conversion. I think they're getting negative polling, and I think most Americans associate these never-ending restrictions with their administration and like-minded governors and mayors.
You know, this might seem as if this is a video about Ron DeSantis being this massive bully. And on some level, it is. But it's also a video about the kids in the back that kept their masks on, that were bullied by this whining, pathetic man talking about COVID theater when he is the one performing here. He's the one acting, giving his dramatic monologue about how frustrated he is from having to suffer through masks, berating these kids who've been brought in to be a part of this. There's so much social pressure for them to comply with this whiny man, this authority figure. But the kids that didn't do it, I love those kids to stick to their principles. If it's fine, as he says, to keep your mask on, then why are you huffing about it? Why are you sighing about it? It doesn't seem so fine. But it is in fact fine, and I'm glad to see it, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the things that's frustrating about all of this is like the Democrats kind of like waffling on a lot of these like COVID restrictions. And like this is where we need to understand half of a bicycle, right? Half of a bicycle is not half as good as having a bicycle, right? Like it's just fundamentally useless, right? And so these Republicans basically jump onto the Democrats who are, keep jumping back and forth between like, oh, well, we know what public health experts say that we should do, but like these, most American voters, they really don't understand what's going on. They're very uncomfortable in these masks, and we got to cater to them. And so Democrats trying to like sort of like split the bicycle in half as a compromise, right? End up sort of like stumbling in the way that we've seen this stumble, the way that we saw COVID explode after the summer when we almost had it under control. And they pulled back the restrictions too soon. And then Republicans turn around and use that as propaganda against the Democrats to say, see what the Democrats are asking for clearly doesn't work. And I think it just goes to show that like when Democrats put in place half measures, it lets people like Ron DeSantis do things like this. And it's just very, very frustrating to see. But honestly, kudos to those kids. Like I think we've seen a couple scenes today of the kids are all right, right? And I think hopefully that is a trend that keeps going for the future.
Exactly, yeah, they want to pretend that the kids are all confused. And again, they might be about some things, but they're not confused about who people like Ron DeSantis are. And Ron DeSantis, for all of his faults, is not as obviously stupid as someone like Donald Trump. He understands the ambiguity in these topics. He doesn't care. None of these topics, even the ones that are explicitly life and death, and I will remind you, I will never get tired of reminding you that Florida utterly failed during this pandemic. I mean, we all did, because we didn't all come together, and we were dragged down by so many bad actors. But Florida in particular failed. Remember, my family died under his watch in Florida, but it's just a game to him. It's something that conceivably could get him into a higher office at some point. And he's not even honest, saying there it's up to you. Well, then why are you berating people? What skin off your back is it if somebody else wears a mask? If somebody's driving down the street in their car wearing a motorcycle helmet, what the hell does it have to do with me? I may not do it, but it's up to them. And he does not think that it's up to them. Whether it's the casual berating or when there was some schools that wanted to do mask mandates, that was that school's choice. Last year, he signed an executive order withholding state funds from them. And then in February, he endorsed the House proposal to strip $200 million in funding from schools that went on to defy his mask mandate. Again, he likes to pretend that things are up to people, but then they are not. And it's complicated. Masks are not by themselves a perfect solution, which is why no one has ever pitched them to be such. But they can help. They are part of a responsible approach to this thing if your goal is to save lives, not to advance your own political career. You want to get into an even crazier? Do you have any thoughts about that before we move on to?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just it's typical Republican ideas, like Republicans want everybody to have the freedom to make the choices that they want in their life, of course, unless the choices that you make are the ones that they don't want you to. So, that's
100%. Yeah, it's fake. It's fake. Now, DeSantis had thoughts about some other topics that he's equally not qualified to talk about, but in this video, you'll see Ron DeSantis opining on war and giving his idea of how World War II went. Let's take a look.
A lot of other places around the world, they just fold the minute there's any type of adversity. I mean, can you imagine if he went into France? Would they do anything to put up a fight? Probably not. And so those folks, are stepping up. But there's a lot of problems, I think, between now and then. And I think, unfortunately, it's going to end up very, very ugly over the next weeks and months.
So look, thankfully, we don't live in a system where the governor of Florida has any control over what happens in Ukraine. Thank God. But bear in mind that guy, Ron DeSantis, desperately wants to be president someday. And this is how he thinks about world affairs. The idea, the hypothesis that he puts out, the hypothetical situation that he puts out of France being invaded, that is only deployed for him to then bash France, that they wouldn't put up any kind of resistance, which, by the way, we don't have time to go into a big history lesson about the French resistance in World War II, but he's getting a few fundamental points wrong. Let's just point that out. Under absolutely horrible circumstances, the resistance put up a fight for years. So it's insanely ahistoric, but also it's opportunistic. I'm gonna mock our allies and call them effectively surrender monkeys, including all of the conservatives in France. They're apparently big wusses too, according to Ron DeSantis. Ridiculous, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, cause like, what does he want? What does he want France to start a nuclear war with Russia? Is this what we're asking for? That's ridiculous. It's absurd. It would be a disaster. It'd be a complete disaster. And if you talk about folding, right? Folding during the times of crisis. Okay, Ron DeSantis's entire strategy to coronavirus was to just give up right away. He was like, oh, why are we even doing anything, right? So literally, the irony here is stacked pretty thick. It's pretty thick irony right here.
Exactly. No, he doesn't understand. Like you saw there, he doesn't know how to put on a mask. He doesn't know how to talk about topics of war. We're gonna be talking in just a few minutes about what chance he has going forward against Trump and all that. But this is just a guy that is fundamentally not equipped in terms of information from which to draw opinions and policies. And he's also far too willing to effectively politically grift about this thing. It's all just fuel for chasing clout, trolling us about topics of life and death that he fundamentally doesn't care about, except insofar as they can advance him in the eyes of right-wing voters.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.